All right. We ready? This
We're
is our
so
first
advanced.
this is our first
I
technological.
feel like we're really into the 2020 technology
Mm.
now. This is insane.
We are.
Look at us. It's like that GIF, the Paul Rudd GIF. Like,
Look at us.
who'd have thought? Not me.
Ladies and gentlemen, episode 26. I hate that I just said when I was trying to come up with the number of what episode it was. It's episode 26 of Three Brothers Talking. We have studio number 10, I believe, that we've now entered into. And this is a virtual studio.
We're telecommuting.
We're telecommuting into the podcast office today because we've entered the 2020 decade. You know, technology is just all around us, and we have literally the cutting edge recording right now. If people could see the setup we've got, they'd be jealous, and they'd think that we were professional broadcasters. You know,
They'd be jealous looking at Jeremy's guns.
That's right.
Too. Yeah.
You know, Jeremy, whenever he gets to record in his own house, he can he can cut loose a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm wearing clothes, so that's what's important right now.
You actually don't need to hold the microphone up to your face.
I'm holding it around because I like it.
Because his chest is too big.
My chest is too big for this mic.
See, here's the thing: is I normally have to yell at Jeremy about being too far away from the mic, and now I just had to tell him that he doesn't have to worry about it. So I feel like that's dangerous for the next time we record.
Yeah.
Andrew, what are you drinking right now?
I went with one of my favorite releases of the year. Currently got Conway's Irish Ale going on.
Nice.
Great Lakes.
Great Lakes Brewing, and it is probably it's my favorite of their beer that they do seasonally. So
I have a Rheingas Cheetah, so you know.
There you go.
That's also a good brew.
I have cinnamon peppermint tea.
There you go.
So there you go. I'm playing sick today, boys. It's a Michael Jordan flu game now.
It's a flu game for David. We've all been there.
I'm channeling my inner Jordan to really make this a good podcast. So, by the way, I'm David.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Jeremy.
Good. I'm glad that we got that out of the way 5 minutes into the recording.
Everyone
That's
was
great.
in suspense.
This has all been for naught, so you might not want to use any of this. So,
what if we only get David recording? It's gonna be a really boring podcast.
If we only get me recording on this, then honestly, I think it's your fault.
Because I'm not holding the mic close enough?
No, because you're the ones that are in charge of your own recordings.
Oh, you meant plural you and not just Jeremy.
Yeah, not just you.
Oh, okay. Not me messing up. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't like this because I can't hear. I'm like not getting our theme song, like the boop boop.
We don't normally get it, Andrew.
I know, but I can normally like impute it to where it's gonna
normally
be.
It's just you and me doing it. Like dun 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 dun.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure that we're really gonna miss out on that.
Yeah.
That situation, but we are stretching our technological chops today and getting into a new world of recording. So
we're all in our own houses.
A new year, a new exciting future for the podcast right now.
Yeah.
We're just getting lazier and lazier and unwilling to leave our own houses.
It's winter, you know.
It's winter. It's cold outside. You already leave the house to go to work. That's all you need to leave for. But we are going to talk about...
It's good to be back.
What'd you say?
It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. You know, it feels a little different, but I think it still feels good. I think we can keep doing this.
So what are we talking about?
We are talking about, well, first, the fact that my wife and I are planning a trip to the Grand Canyon. And I discovered that whenever you plan a trip to the Grand Canyon or anywhere, whenever you commit to taking the trip, you've basically given yourself a new job because now you've become trip planner. And now it's like, all right, great. I've got to figure out.
Are you doing the planning, or is Rachel?
I'm doing most of the planning. I'm picking the flights. I'm picking the hotels and stuff like that. So I mean, I hope the whole thing's worth it in the end, right? Planning a trip.
Yeah.
But as soon as you pick a trip out, you've created new work for yourself. And so I think I've learned my lesson, and I'll never take a trip again. I haven't even taken this one yet.
That's why I'm a fan of staycations.
Mm.
You just hit pause and just stay where you're at.
Yeah. This will be the first time that that I've ever taken a trip that didn't have a reason behind it, as far as like a big trip. I've never done that before. So,
well, and this will be your guys' like first kind of major vacation just with you two, right?
Yeah, apart from the honeymoon, it'll be the first one.
It's been like, I was like, you guys kind of have just done family stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've never done it. We've been getting out of debt, and we get out of debt this month, February. We get out of debt. So, yeah, man, we're excited about it.
Well, besides house, right?
Besides the house.
Yeah.
No, I got the house because I just got all that money from dealing drugs. So the house is already paid for.
Oh, straight cash.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll be getting out of student debt and all the other debt that we had. So celebrate it by going on a trip that we'll pay with a credit card on. So
there you go.
That's not true. Calm down, Dave.
Points.
Calm down, Dave Ramsey.
He was angry. He was just texting me like, my ears are ringing right now about David.
He just woke up in a cold sweat in the middle of Tennessee, and he's like, I heard a disturbance in the
when are you guys thinking about going?
It'll be the end of April. Actually, I should say middle of April.
You shouldn't tell all the listeners. They might come and follow you.
Yeah,
you know what? Actually, I should tell the listeners because
we're not getting into specifics.
We don't know yet. Well, actually, I'm okay with that because maybe we've got like listeners in the area that want to, I don't know, bless us in some way whenever we get out there. That'd be cool. Good friends. A pretty good friend of mine lives. He told me like yesterday what the actual town is that he lives in, but I think he said like an hour north of Phoenix. So I'm hoping to see him whenever we get out there for a little bit. But he's been my eyes on the ground as far as I've been texting him nonstop. Like, should I get a hotel in this part of town or this part of town? What time of year should we go? When does it get too hot? When do all the tourists come? And he's been giving me advice on that. So, pro tip, planning a trip, find somebody you know who lives there and can tell you all the things that you should do.
That's why we haven't gone to Alaska yet.
Hey, if we've got any listeners in Alaska.
I would love to go to Alaska. That'd be fun.
I'd love to do, doesn't Ligonier do an Alaska thing?
I don't know.
I think it's a cruise. I'm not really a cruise person, but I would do a cruise to Alaska,
we were
especially if it was a Ligonier thing.
And then we decided not to. And we found out like 2 weeks later that we were expecting number 2. So, because if you're on a cruise, because after a cruise, you can't be pregnant if you're going to be like.
Did Jeremy just break news?
Jeremy just broke news on the podcast.
Yeah, it's Jeremy. They don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, she's like halfway through at this point. She's over halfway through.
Yeah, but we haven't announced it on the podcast.
Yeah, we don't release podcasts that often.
Okay. Yeah, hey, we're having a baby again.
Jeremy's having number 2.
We're having number 2. It's been on Facebook. We're like over 20 weeks. So yeah, she's having a little girl. So yeah, we're excited.
She's having a little girl.
She's having it. I mean, we're gonna have a little girl, but she's actually giving birth to the child.
She's not. Yeah,
man.
But we actually, if we always stay on top of like announcing when babies are coming on this podcast, we'll at the rate at which we release babies in this group and the rate at which we release podcasts, we'll pretty much be announcing every week.
Well, our wives are releasing the babies, so
yes,
we release podcasts. They release babies. Kind of the same thing.
I can't wait. So, side tangent. We all know Jeremy and Faith. I can't wait to do a podcast about this experience. I mean, not like graphically, but we know you're going down the path of a home birth.
Oh yeah, it will not be graphic.
And
we're not going to be recording the podcast that night.
I can't wait to dive into how this all is going to play out for you guys.
It's going to go great. We're doing a home birth.
I know it will. It's just going to be a new experience that we're going to have to dive into.
They did ask me if I was going to catch, and I just looked at them like, no way.
Nah.
Like,
nope.
I am not going down there to help out.
So if anybody out there has done a home birth, feel free to hit up Jeremy for to give advice and
It's gonna go.
Yeah.
Gonna go great.
If you have any horror stories you want to scare them with, or
I will not listen to those.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't. Jeremy doesn't want to listen to any of those beforehand. That'd be a bad thing.
It'll still be good, even if I hear them.
With our new virtual podcast studio, we could actually record, while you're in the delivery, well, not delivery room, right? But hey, kind of like where you're sitting right now in your living room, we could just do that, except Faith will also be having the baby.
I know.
In the room.
Good thing we have hardwood floors.
Is it? Are you actually? It's going to be in your actual house, right?
Well, yeah, we're not doing it outside.
Okay. Well, I didn't know.
It's not called a home birth outside.
Granted, that's a dumb question, but here's my mind thought for a second that all right, it won't be in a hospital, but it'll be at the midwife's.
No,
I don't know.
The midwives come here, even her appointments. She comes over to the house and does it, which is super great for having a baby. By the way,
have you guys picked the room yet?
I mean, I'm guessing it's just going to be the largest room is the kitchen area and those are hardwood floors. So
yeah, probably the best
or a bathroom will probably be what happens.
I'm sure your wife will love listening to this podcast where you keep on talking about hardwood floors.
Yeah,
that'll be great.
They're the easiest thing to clean.
This has been quite the tangent. Yes. We don't have to keep talking about this.
Yeah, it's a little bit gross. So
yeah.
On the other hand, though, this is a podcast that loves babies, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're already on the way with number 2. So
in one way, this wasn't a tangent at all.
No, I was segueing very professionally.
Yes, because we're going to talk about this video that it's great to do a podcast about a video because a podcast, I don't know, maybe I can steal the audio from it. Maybe if I feel like it, I'll steal the audio from this video and put it in right here to do so that the listener can hear the audio and then they can hear us talk about it. Or we'll just link to it or something like that. But the video is of a pastor of what it looks to be some large generic evangelical church. They all look the same these days for the most part. They've got we just, if it's a big church or something, or even the small churches, we get some LED lights and we wash them up on the back wall, and we have some kind of wood paneling on the back wall, or some kind of just very
shiplap,
some shiplap or some cloths hanging. So very typical looking large church. And this pastor, in the middle of his sermon, hears one tiny peep out of a baby.
Yeah, you couldn't even hear it in the recording.
You couldn't even pick it up.
Yeah, and so granted, if this is a big church and a big sanctuary, maybe it was that loud, and it's just the baby's that far away.
He said
I don't
300
know.
people, 250 to 300.
So he stops the sermon to say, "Hey, ushers, can you help that family find the family rooms or whatever? The rooms where they have the TVs, where the babies can cry, all that stuff." And then he goes on with his sermon, and about 10 seconds later, he realizes everyone in the room is feeling very awkward.
Got really weird.
That he called out a mom and a kid, and so then he goes on this extended thing about how he's not trying to make that mom feel bad, but we got 300 people in here, and we don't want them to be distracted and all this stuff.
Which was more distracting than the child.
Yes, he literally took about 6-7 minutes to dive onto this topic of distraction.
Actually, the video is only 1.5 minutes long, but I agree with you, Andrew, that it feels like 6 minutes.
Yeah,
it is so intensely awkward, and some might say it's more distracting to call out someone who might be a guest at your church, right? This might be their first Sunday in church in a long time,
or ever.
Yeah.
Or ever. And you're just he even says a thing about, that's why we've got the TVs out in the atrium or something like that. But we're not here just to dunk on this guy. I don't even know that pastor's name. I don't really care to, because we're not just trying to badmouth this guy. But whenever we saw it, we thought, this is kind of an attitude that feels, although not explicitly there in every church, but kind of implicitly there in every church. Do you guys feel that way as you see that?
I mean, I think it definitely can. Yeah, it definitely is present when you get to. You look at the whole atmosphere that was set up at that church in particular, which is replicated quite a lot nowadays, and just how much, like, you could tell, especially in the context, this guy was like trying to hit on something that he had really mapped out in his head, and like he thought he had the perfect wording and everything sequenced out just how he wanted it to land.
Yeah.
And this just totally set him off. And it kind of just leads to that mentality of like you're wanting your performance to be perfect.
Yeah.
And and that leads to like, okay, you want your service as a whole to come off, you want it to be seamless. You want it to be perfectly laid out from beginning to end and all that. And kind of leads to a showmanship attitude. I think that is present quite a bit. Like we talk about that quite a bit, like kind of our beefs, especially when it preleads to the worship part of the service,
music part
and like
of it.
putting on too much of a show with the atmosphere that you're trying to create and everything, instead of engaging the congregation specifically. And I think this can kind of be a part of that, can lead into the sermon part of it too, where like this guy wanted everything to be fitting together perfectly in what he had put together to say. And I think it really stunted his performance.
Yeah, there's like a weirdness that we can have about kids being a distraction in church, right? And I think after I showed my wife the video, she just said, boy, he would hate our church. Because there's just kids all over the place at our church.
I mean, my son's one of them. You cannot contain him.
So, I don't know. It feels... Now, you guys tell me if I'm wrong. Jeremy, tell me if I'm wrong. But it seems to me, something you discussed in our pre-show prep, which we actually did, a record high, I think, this time. It seems to me that this attitude felt a little, some might say, opposite of Jesus's attitude about kids.
I would say that if you read his accounts of when, I don't remember what part of Matt, it's in most of the, I think in all the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I don't know about if it's in John, but they talk about how the disciples are trying to push the little kids away from Jesus, and he tells them all to, because literally being the distraction to what he's trying to teach, and he rebukes the disciples and says, "What are you doing here? Like, this is no, you don't understand." And granted, I'm sure those kids were being a distraction, and granted, I'm sure we've all had that thought and that attitude at some point, but like growing up, I'm sure we all didn't think, like our younger selves didn't think it was all not a distraction, but also it's a worthy distraction. I mean, in your world, like in our worldly state of mind, like of course it can come off as distracting, but it also, I think, is kind of like this guy reiterated so much of the point of that he didn't want it to affect the rest of the body, like the other 300 people in the room. He didn't want it to be a distraction for all of them. He didn't want anything to be interrupting their experience. And it's like, well, it's kind of a shallow view of what God might be doing in your service as a whole, if you think that your words and all that could be interrupted by the utterings of a baby could get in the way of what God wants to do or what the Holy Spirit is at work doing in that context. Yeah.
God is not going to be taken aback, like, oh, that baby's, like, God even knows when the babies are going to make noise. Yeah. And his spirit is more powerful than that when the spirit's at work. And it's totally an attitude that I have. And I mean, I know there's plenty of Sundays, even at our church, that you still have to adjust sometimes when babies are making noise. We got a small room and a lot of babies at our church. So many babies. That there are plenty of Sundays where you've got to do some fighting through on your own end of like, I'm going to square in and listen.
You got to focus. Yeah.
But if you think that church is mainly about a great experience, then you react the way that he did. If you think that church is mainly like, this is the family of God getting together, then you fight through those distractions, and you don't necessarily see them as distractions.
And I think too, he was caught up in the moment. It might have been a little bit, not to like judge, but it might have been a little bit of pride in that he thought like he thought his delivery was going to be so profound that he didn't want to get it mixed up and interrupted in that context. So,
yeah. It's just, we shouldn't have convenience be our mindset when we're at church. Like, oh, my kid's inconvenient, so I'll put him in the other room. Or my kid's inconvenient, so we'll just go and watch it on the TV in the atrium every Sunday. That just feels sad to me.
Well, I mean, that you see, I see time and time again with like it's tough to like especially when you get multiple kids in the situation, it's tough to like, if you have an early service, to be like, oh, I got to get 3 or 4 kids up, put together, out the door and on time. And you try to do it. And some weeks, like, parents are discouraged because they don't want to be the people in there that are being the distraction to the other people. And they don't want to be the ones bringing, kind of like the circus in town. And so that leads to a lot of people that just bow out for like years until their kids are of the age that they can like be mature and like sit still and all that. And it's really sad, I think, that we have that kind of view where it's easier for them to just bail out and not be active in their local body for that time period because they're looked down upon or
they feel like they might be.
Well, and going back, like, there's nothing wrong with having like the mother's rooms and all that stuff. Like, those are good things to have, but shunning people away from it, especially when if the kid's being a distraction, the parents are gonna know it first.
And there's some Sundays. Yeah, exactly. There's some Sundays and there's some kids that they're having a real tough time some Sunday, and the mother's room is great when they're having like an actual meltdown or something. That's totally fine. But this was the general feeling of just like kids. Any noise at all is a distraction,
right?
That we have to eliminate. Like, come on, man, they're part of the body.
The point that those are good tools to use and have, like, family rooms and all that stuff are great. And I get it, but also I think we lose
have the resources for that. Yeah.
But you also lose something of, especially like Faith and I, before we had Micah, we had talked about it because we're having a kid's like, how do we want to treat Micah when we're gonna have him? And we were like, no, we want him, even growing up, we want him to be able to sit in the normal service with us. We want a church that's going to be not necessarily accommodating of that, but being like understanding of that. We want him to be able to sit and hear the word. And even when he goes to a kid's church, which he would go to, which is good too, but even for babies and infants, that he would hear a good message in both cases. And not looked at as a distraction.
Well, yeah, and it's like, wouldn't you want to enable, I guess, just thinking long term, like if you have little ones that, you want them to be hearing the word just like they do with their siblings and with their parents each and every week. And the more they're doing that, and yes, it could be a little distracting at first, but the more they're doing that, the more the quicker they can transition to actually like being considered part of the actual body of the church.
Right.
And you're teaching them how to behave, how church goes about these things. And if they don't, if they're annexed or whatever, then they will never truly get that type of behavior.
You're teaching them the discipline of sitting and listening. And I mean, we just don't really think about it that way. And not all children's church is bad, having kids classes, this or that. But I do think we should be honest with ourselves that sometimes some of the reason that we like those accessories so much is the convenience.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're bad, but let's be honest. I think we have to check our own hearts at times. Like, hey, is the main reason I love this so much because it makes Sunday morning more convenient? Yeah, like
that's
not the reason.
Those rooms, and that even like lends to even the fact that like a lot of services now are like broadcast online and streamed and all that.
Yep.
And like I said earlier, where like there's a time where families just bow out, but yet they think it's just as good to just be at home where they can stay. All the kids can stay in their PJs and they can just put the service up on the TV. So it's like you have that part of it too, where like technology has enabled us to be, I guess, somewhat lazy with
well,
pushing
it's
for that.
enabled us. It's enabled us to do that and feel like we're remaining connected when we're not. We're really not connected. In that situation that you pointed out, you're really not connected. So that's kind of part one to this discussion is churches should care about their kids. They shouldn't see them as distractions. The other part of this that got me thinking, and maybe depending on the length of this might get split up into a 2-part episode. We'll see. But this attitude can sometimes be on display even in our own families, not just in the church. An attitude of kids being a distraction or an inconvenience.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever feel like you kind of butt up against that in your own lives? Because I haven't been a parent, right? So I just know that from me looking on the outside, something that Rachel and I talk about all the time is that we don't want to complain about the spouse, or even we don't want to be negative about our spouse, even when they're not in the room, whatever. We just don't want to be that couple that, we don't want to be the couple that makes jokes about liking to not have to spend that much time with each other or something like that. Those kind of jokes that people throw around about marriage, about how they're trapped in it, as if that's a funny joke.
Yeah, or like they joke that like, they just need a night away and like they just got to get out of the house and prioritize their time away from their significant others. Yeah.
And so I just think that attitude, I don't know how it is to have kids, right? But I just feel like I don't want to see the church full of people that at least give off a vibe to other people that their kids are kind of a distraction or an inconvenience to them.
Yeah, I mean I definitely get your point there, and
I'm not thinking about anyone in particular. Like I'm just saying, like sometimes there's jokes about I gave up, whenever I had all these kids, I had to give up having fun.
Yeah.
Whenever I had all these kids, I had to give up all my money. I had to give up the job that I wanted. I had to do this or that. And to me, it's like being a parent is such a high and holy calling.
Yeah.
And it is better than the money that you had or the job that you had or whatever else you had.
Or going out on Friday night.
Yeah. And so how do you guys deal with that, or how do you kind of see that being parents for as long as you've been now?
I would say you have to be cautious with it because it's definitely something where I don't think I haven't, hopefully from the outside perspective, people who look at my life haven't seen that I've, been struggling in this aspect, but it's something you have to guard against because just again, like whenever, even though you're in a marriage relationship and a parenting relationship, your selfish desires still come through in those times of weakness time and time again, where
yes, they do.
It's all about who has control of your time. And you might still want to take that back. And that's where I think a lot of this is rooted with parents that, claim all the time that they're in baby jail and they're, they can't get out of the house to do anything and their kids are driving them crazy. Just trying to, keep them functioning and keep the house running.
Do people say baby jail?
That is a term that is thrown around. Or just saying like they're on baby duty or like kid duty or whatever. So
I got asked one time if I was watching Micah on drill weekends, like, oh, so you're babysitting? And I'm like, no, I think I just call it parenting for the day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I know that there's a fight. Like I even get that there's less of a demand of me just being married, not having kids, right? But there's still times when, like you pointed out, Andrew, when being married, having a wife demands certain things of your time that you'd rather not, not have to deal with. And so there's still a fight for me at times to not be selfish with my time. But that attitude that pastor showed of like, oh, I've been inconvenienced.
Yeah.
I show that attitude all the time when something in marriage or my wife kind of inconveniences me. And that's what scared me about that clip is like, okay, I might not be a pastor preaching in front of hundreds of people, but I can still view the good gifts that God has given me, like a wife or kids. I can still secretly like spurn them a little bit.
I think that is like, it can be amplified like tenfold with a parenting relationship because you have a spouse to balance, at least hopefully balance some of the workload. And yet it can still be that desire to like make sure that, you know, like your effort with your kids and all that are even day by day, which it never is. Like Kaylee day by day has quite a bit more of, you know, until we get to like weekends and stuff like that, has quite a bit more of the caring aspect duties with Lincoln than I do just because of my work schedule and all that. But there's always that desire of like just wanting to even the score and like wanting to still take back some of the time, like in the case where Lincoln needs a bath and Lincoln needs to go to bed and all that. And you still keep that credit of like, oh, well, what have I already done today? Like I gave him breakfast. I did this. And I think it's all rooted in that same concept of just wanting to take back control of your time. And hopefully, I mean, the only way to get around that, like you said earlier, is that you are truly looking at your parenting relationship and the relationship with your spouse, like, and the high calling that it is to elevate your spouse and to steward your kids unto Christ. And if that's not your view first and foremost, and you're not sacrificing yourself each and every day as a husband and as a man in the head of your household, then those things can get out of whack really quickly.
Yeah. Jeremy, do you have something?
I mean, you guys are spot on. I have nothing really to add. I think that a lot of it, I sit there and I look at myself and I'm like, man, it's so easy to fall in the traps of marriage and parenting and everything. You can easily keep score of things in your head, and you're like, man, especially after a long day or whatnot. And I mean, I know I've fallen into that trap in my own head before. And once you're in those traps, it's hard to get out of those traps.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is to repent and be honest and move on from them. And
and just, I mean, I think it's asking God daily to just continue to change your heart for those relationships. Yeah. Like,
it's something
because
go ahead.
No, you're good.
Well, and that's what I was gonna think. I had texted you guys off, and this is kind of off subject, but on subject. It's something about
those two things can't be the same, but okay.
You'll get it.
Some might say off, some might say on.
We'll see.
Just say something.
If you think it's off, just say it's off. We'll save it. But I had to say, like, hey, what does it mean to be merciful? Or what does mercy mean?
Yeah.
And granted, it's not exactly the same. But you think about grace, it's like, man, do I think my feelings are so much higher? Like, or do I try to project? Or think that maybe like in this whole grand scheme there with kids, like, do you think they don't want to like not obey you? Do you think, or granted, sometimes they don't, or even like do not want to be a distraction. Kids are little sinners, so like, even tonight we're feeding Micah, and I'm like he's gonna try to stand up again, and then you push him back down. I said, no, stop standing on your chair, you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
Even like with your spouse saying, I'm gonna try from the attitude of how would I want to be treated. Would I want someone to keep score of me? If I say I'm tired, I want them to just think, I'm really tired. I've had a long day. I've worked hard too.
Yeah. There's a really good, I can try to find it. I don't know if David, if you're aware of the particular, but I can try to find it again. But there was a really good sermon, the series by Matt Chandler, it was a while ago, where
never heard of him,
where he was doing basically he did like kind of he did the roles of the household, where he did the roles of a husband, roles of a spouse, and roles of kids.
Okay.
And especially, obviously, I listen very deeply to the roles of a husband, and just something that's always stuck with me, and that I try pray for and to hopefully I'm getting myself enough rest to really dive into each and every day. Is he said, I'm going to totally butcher this because he's very much more eloquent than I am. But basically that each and every day you should be getting your rest so that each and every morning you are ready to pour yourself out to the full unto your spouse, unto your kids, and that he did the illustration of basically a rag that should be wrung completely out by the end of your day. And whether that day means that you're going off to work and then you're coming back to your household to clean things up, to do the dishes, to get kids ready for bed and everything, that you should basically be attacking each day to be poured out and exhausted by the end of it, so that you do not have energy or anything left to then be a distraction or to be anything that takes away from your family unit or the shepherding of your household. I just thought that was a really cool illustration.
We have to remember the most important things. I think that this whole discussion reminds me of how much we've been discipled by the world, much more than we've been discipled by God, and how we think about the parts of life and what really matters. And it breaks my heart a lot when if I hear somebody talking about baby jail, like I hear a mom talking about that, and it's like, you're a mom. Like, that's an amazingly high calling. Like what? And I know it doesn't always feel that way. Or like, you're a dad. That's a high calling. And that's the most valuable work you've been given to do.
Yeah.
Is the kids.
More than your job or your career, yeah.
Yeah, more than your job or what you'd like to be doing. Like, this is the most important job you've been given. It is the most important calling on your life. And we struggle to believe that, man, because the world tells us that our work in the marketplace will give us the most joy and the most satisfaction, and we are what we own, or we are what we appear to be on social media and all this stuff. And instead, it's like, no, we need to believe what the word says about what's really important in life. And I mean, that's like over and over again, the Bible just stresses the beauty, the toughness, but also the importance of parenting.
I think only with that kind of mentality and the change of heart, then you can get out of that routine of like Jeremy was saying about keeping score daily and trying to do the one-up game and all that of earning points, because you know that each and every day you're waking up with the purpose to elevate your spouse and the purpose to steward your kids unto the word. And nothing else is coming in that would, that goes against or even elevates to that calling. Yeah. And then all the rest of the stuff can fade away.
Well, all the other stuff is good. Yeah. It's just, it's not what defines you. It's not who you are. It's not your most important calling. And that's not easy to believe all the time. I mean, we all know it. It's not easy to believe the priorities that God gives us in his word. It's not always easy to believe those. We want to believe a million other things to be the most important, but it doesn't change the fact that they are. So.
Word.
Well, how'd we do, Jeremy? I think we did all right.
Okay, sorry, I was reading one of my favorite verses is Psalm 127.
Read it.
Well, that's a chapter. So one of my favorite chapters. I don't know, especially like with us having another kid in quick succession. Psalm 127:3. Behold, children are a heritage from God, the Lord. The fruit of the woman a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies at the gate. So, I don't know. It's something like people think like, oh, we sit there and if you read the Bible, at no point are children ever taught as an inconvenience. And neither in marriages. And we often fall into the trap of even small comments, and which may not mean anything, but it still projects the attitude of something.
And like your point, David, like even if it is just small comments in passing where you don't think anything of it, or it is just like something where you let your guard down and you let something slip, what does that portray to those around you that are hearing those words, even if it's not your spouse? What kind of image are you putting in their minds of, that high relationship that you should be looking at?
Yeah. Well, and I think also, if we get in the habit of complaining, even joking, complaining about something, in time that begins to shape us, and I think we begin to actually complain about it. It's what we speak of does impact us, and that's something that you have to watch out for. That's one of the reasons we have to guard our mouths, I think.
Yeah. Now I think we did good, David.
No. Now I think we did good.
We needed that little extra.
We needed to actually put some Bible in this, I think.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
This is a lot of talk.
It's one of my favorite chapters. I read it often, especially the part about sleeping. And David gave us a good sermon the other day, David, by the way, from our good friend KDY about sleeping. That was a good one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll link to that in the notes as well. It's totally not about what we talked about, but it's it's Kevin DeYoung preaching about sleep, and it was quite good.
On sleep and how Faith always tells me how I need to have more, and then the next 3 days, Micah, who we love, decides that his molars are coming in. So,
so are ours.
Yeah, she found him today.
Yeah.
He's like look in the back of his teeth. He's like, hey, there's molars in there.
We have one that's already cut through, and he's working on the other one.
Shout out! I don't know if she'll hear this, but if Katie, our sister, listens to this podcast, our niece turned 1 year old today. So.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Ella.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Ella.
That's right.
Ella
Not on the
Bella.
day that you're hearing this, but on the day that we're recording it.
This isn't live. We're not talking.
Well, we're still.
Yes.
We're not talking
we're celebrating
live
it
into
this
your
weekend.
phone.
If it was live, then it'd be even more of a mess.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's that.
We could do a live hangout along with our conference.
Well, we will, exactly. The other thing I've got a recommendation that I thought actually went well with this, except I've not actually read this book, but I think Jeremy has. Stop Your Complaining by Ronnie Martin.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I've read it twice.
He's read it twice, and he still complains.
He complains.
So the book must.
That's a good one. It's a short. Did
you complain about reading it the second time?
The book might stink then if he's read it twice and he still complains.
Good. It's really short. The thing I love about Ronnie Martin, because we met him. He's a good guy. Solid dude. Met him a few times.
Good guy.
And
loves the Lord.
Makes great music. You look up some old Joy Electric.
There you go.
He's very succinct, and his books are not overly wordy.
Yeah.
And they sound like him talking. Same thing with Ted Gluck's writing. It's like, I can easily just pick this up and read it.
Yeah. It's not overly wordy.
Well, yeah, they're like, okay, I don't need, because some books are like 100 pages too long.
Also,
I read those books.
Also, theological books, those aren't really theological books that they write most of the time. Just kind of faith and living books. They can still be fun. Yeah. And I think that like Ted Gluck or Ronnie Martin, I think that they still write those books with an attitude of fun when you read them. So more pleasant to read. But anyway, I just thought that was a good book.
Good reco.
Yeah, I thought it would fit because we talked about complaining the whole time, and I still need to read it myself. So
sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry, Mia.
With Mia's Jeremy's dog, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. I put my foot down, and I had a whole audience. I have both cats and both dogs.
You're just sitting in their room listening to you.
That's right.
They're entertained. At least they're entertained by us.
Can we count them as listeners to the podcast? Can I send updated numbers to all of our sponsor
They have to
people?
subscribe.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to get another pet to get more subscribers.
Yeah, I'll tell the next sponsor we get that we just gained 4 new listeners.
We'll name our next pet after you if you sponsor our podcast, because who knows anymore.
Yeah. All right.
We have naming rights for our new daughter up.
Naming rights. There you go.
Muskox might be the first sponsor.
Muskox. My new dog, Muskox.
That'd be a good dog name.
Ox is not a bad name for a dog.
You could have a dog
Yeah,
named
it's like
Musk and another
ironic.
dog named
That'd be
Ox.
cool.
Yeah, I like that name actually. So,
All right, I'll keep it in the back burner.
With this podcast spiraling out of control directly into the ground, we'll have to cut it off here. So, good job, guys. I think we did all right.
We did pretty
I think
well.
we did pretty good. I hit the buttons I was supposed to hit, so that works.
Yeah, everybody's still recording, which is good news.
My phone didn't die.
Until next time, we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
We did it.
Did it hit stop recording now?